Iran's $10,000 drone just made America's $13 billion carrier flinch, and it didn't even need to hit it. That's the sentence the Pentagon doesn't want you to read, because in the waters of the Red Sea, something unprecedented is happening. The most powerful warship ever built, a floating city powered by 2 nuclear reactors carrying 5,000 sailors, 80 aircraft, and enough firepower to level a small country, is under sustained attack from a landlocked rebel group that makes their weapons in mountain workshops with parts bought on the open market. And while the carrier hasn't been sunk, the United States military has already lost over $200 million in aircraft, suffered multiple incidents, fired hundreds of millions of dollars worth of missiles, and watched a $67 million fighter jet slide quietly off the deck into the sea. Iran didn't sink the USS Harry S. Truman. The Houthis didn't destroy it, but they forced it to flinch. And in military strategy, flinching is the beginning of losing. This is the story of the most lopsided arms race in modern history, and the terrifying question no admiral wants to answer out loud. The date is March 15, 2025. It is 2 a.m. in the northern Red Sea. Somewhere below the stars, the USS Harry S. Truman cuts through the water. It weighs 97,000 tons. It is 1,092 feet long, nearly the length of the Empire State Building, lying on its side. Its flight deck covers 4.5 acres. At this moment, FA-18 Super Hornets are being armed on that deck, preparing to strike targets deep inside Yemen. The operation is called part of the Trump administration's renewed offensive against the Houthis, the Iran-backed rebel group that has spent the last 18 months attacking ships in one of the world's most important trade routes. The United States has already launched hundreds of airstrikes. It has fired Tomahawk cruise missiles worth $2 million each. It has deployed Aegis destroyers, guided missile cruisers, and combat aircraft around the clock. The combined operating cost of the Truman carrier strike group in a single day runs into the millions of dollars. And the Houthis are still shooting. At exactly 3:17 a.m., radar operators aboard the Truman's escort ships detect incoming threats. 18 ballistic missiles and drones, fired from Yemen, aimed at the strike group. The Aegis combat system, a $4 billion constellation of sensors and interceptor missiles, comes alive. SM-2 missiles launch with a thunderclap that splits the night. The CIWS Phalanx Gatling guns spin up, firing 4,500 rounds per minute. The sky fills with fire and debris. The UN, he smiles, because he didn't send those missiles to sink the Truman. He sent them to make it move. To understand why this matters, you need to understand the economics of modern asymmetric warfare. The United States Navy's most powerful weapon is also its most expensive vulnerability. Aircraft carriers are not just ships. They are political symbols, strategic signaling devices, moving declarations of national power. When a carrier group deploys to a region, it tells every government and every rebel faction, America is here. America can project force anywhere on Earth within 72 hours. But symbols have a weakness. You can exploit them without defeating them. The Houthis, a group that controls territory in one of the poorest countries on Earth, have turned this weakness into a strategy. Their drones cost between $10,000 and $20,000 each. Some are assembled from commercially available components, powered by modified car engines, guided by GPS chips that any consumer can buy. The Iranian-supplied Shahed 136, the backbone of their drone swarm, costs an estimated $20,000 to $50,000 per unit. For the price of a single American SM-2 interceptor missile, which costs $2.1 million, the Houthis can field over 100 attack drones. Type A in the comments if you think that cost ratio matters. Type B if you think raw American firepower wins regardless. Do the math again. The United States has spent over $1 billion in munitions alone, fighting this conflict. Some estimates place the total operational cost of counter-Houthi operations well above $3 billion when you factor in carrier group operations, aircraft sorties, and logistics. The Houthis have spent a fraction of that and kept the world's most expensive navy on permanent combat footing for over a year and a half. But the economics are only part of the story, because what happened next to the USS Harry S. Truman goes beyond budget sheets. It reads like a disaster novel. December 22, 2024. The Truman is operating in the Red Sea when an F/A-18F Super Hornet launches from its deck. Routine combat sortie. Except the cruiser USS Gettysburg, one of Truman's own escort ships, mistakes the aircraft for an incoming Houthi threat. The Gettysburg fires. The missile hits. America's own warship shoots down America's own $67 million aircraft. Both pilots eject successfully. But the plane, a frontline combat aircraft, is gone. Lost to friendly fire in a combat zone so chaotic that American ships are shooting at American planes. The investigation would later find a lack of integrated training opportunities and lack of cohesion across the carrier strike group. Translation: in the fog of constant Houthi drone attacks, America's own defenses failed under the pressure. February 12, 2025. The Truman is transiting toward the Suez Canal in the Mediterranean. It collides with a merchant vessel, the Besiktas M. No sailors are killed, but the carrier, the mightiest warship afloat, has to limp to the Greek island of Crete for repairs. The carrier's commanding officer, Captain Dave Snowden, is fired, relieved of command. An investigation reveals the ship was not even transmitting its location at the time, as required in congested waters. But wait, it gets worse. April 28, 2025. The Truman is back in the Red Sea. Houthis claim to have launched another drone and missile barrage at the carrier group. The ship takes evasive action, a hard turn at speed. In the hangar bay below deck, sailors are towing an F/A-18E Super Hornet. The turn creates lateral force. The towing tractor loses traction. The $67 million aircraft, plus the tractor, slides across the polished steel deck and goes overboard into the Red Sea. One sailor is in the cockpit. He jumps clear at the last second, suffering minor injuries. The plane sinks. The Navy's official investigation later confirms it. The evasive maneuver was a direct response to the incoming Houthi ballistic missile threat. A $10,000 drone made a $67 million jet fall into the ocean without even getting close. If you're watching this and thinking about what modern warfare really looks like, hit that subscribe button right now, because this story only gets stranger. May 6, 2025. Less than 2 weeks after the April incident, it happens again. A different F/A-18F Super Hornet is landing on the Truman's flight deck after a combat sortie over Yemen. The arresting cable, the wire that catches the plane's tailhook and slams it to a stop in less than 300 feet, fails to engage correctly. The jet, traveling at over 150 miles per hour, runs out of deck. It goes over the edge. Both pilots eject. They survive. The aircraft, another $67 million machine, disappears beneath the Red Sea's surface. 3 F/A-18 Super Hornets lost from a single carrier. One shot down by its own escort. One knocked overboard by evasive maneuvers. One lost in a landing mishap compounded by combat stress. Total aviation losses from the USS Harry S. Truman deployment, over $200 million. Not from enemy fire, from the grinding, relentless pressure of a sustained combat deployment against an enemy that simply refuses to stop. Now, the annual value of trade through the Red Sea is approximately $1 trillion. The Houthis have severely disrupted that flow with weapons that cost less per unit than a used car. What would you have done in the Pentagon's position when those first attacks started in 2023? Respond in the comments. Here's where the Iranian equation becomes even more alarming. The Houthis don't manufacture these weapons alone. Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the IRGC, is the logistics backbone of this entire operation. Iranian intelligence ships like the MV Behshad have operated in the Red Sea, gathering data on ship movements and feeding targeting information to Houthi launch teams. Iranian-manufactured drones with claimed ranges of 2,500 kilometers are being transferred to Houthi stockpiles. Iranian ballistic missiles with increasingly precise guidance systems are being tested in real combat conditions against the world's best naval defenses. And the data goes straight back to Tehran. The U.S. Defense Intelligence Agency published a report called Seized at Sea in 2024, documenting the weapons seized from Iranian supply ships. The inventory was staggering: medium-range ballistic missiles, precision-guided anti-ship cruise missiles, surface-to-air missiles capable of targeting American MQ-9 Reaper drones flying at high altitude. The Houthis had already shot down at least 14 American MQ-9 Reapers, drones that cost $30 million each, over the course of the campaign. That's $420 million in drones, shot down by a group that was supposed to be degraded into irrelevance by American airstrikes. In July 2024, a Houthi Samad-3 drone, a modified design with a range of over 1,000 miles, flew from Yemen, skirted detection, and exploded near the U.S. Embassy branch office in Tel Aviv, Israel. One person was killed. The drone was later identified as the Yafa model, a version the Houthis claimed was invisible to radar. The IDF later admitted the failure to intercept was caused by human error, but the implications were devastating. A $20,000 drone flew 1,600 kilometers and hit a target in a city protected by the world's most advanced air defense systems. And in January 2025, a Houthi cruise missile came within 1 mile of the destroyer USS Gravely in the Red Sea, close enough that the ship had to deploy its Phalanx close-in weapons system, a last-resort Gatling cannon designed to destroy threats in the final seconds before impact. 1 mile, seconds from catastrophe. The system worked, but the margin was terrifyingly small. Support the channel by giving this video a thumbs up if this analysis is hitting differently than anything else you've seen on this topic. Here is the tactical reality that American commanders face every single day in the Red Sea. The carrier's primary defense is layered: outer rings of interceptor missiles, middle rings of chaff and electronic jamming, inner rings of the Phalanx CIWS. Each layer is expensive. Each intercept costs between $500,000 and $2.1 million per missile. The Houthis know this. Their strategy isn't to overwhelm every layer. It's to force America to fire expensive interceptors at cheap drones until the math becomes unsustainable, and to probe the layers constantly for gaps. The January 2024 incident with USS Gravely proved the gap exists. Something got through the outer layers. Something got close enough to trigger the last line of defense. That something, a Houthi cruise missile assembled with Iranian components and commercially available electronics, nearly killed American sailors. The USS Harry S. Truman was commissioned in 1998. It cost $4.5 billion to build and has been repeatedly upgraded, with lifetime support costs estimated at over $13 billion. It carries 80 aircraft. It requires 5,000 sailors to operate. Its nuclear reactors can power it for 20 years without refueling. It is, by every measure, the most capable instrument of naval power in human history. And it has been systematically harassed, exhausted, and forced to absorb losses by a rebel group operating out of one of the world's poorest countries, using weapons assembled from parts available online, funded by a nation under crushing international sanctions. Was the U.S. response to the Houthi threat a strategic success or a trillion-dollar miscalculation? Drop your analysis in the comments. The implications extend far beyond Yemen. Every navy in the world, Chinese, Russian, North Korean, is studying this conflict with obsessive intensity. Because if a $10,000 drone can force a $13 billion carrier to flinch, to lose aircraft, to burn through interceptor stockpiles, to exhaust its crews, then the entire doctrine of carrier-based power projection is being tested in real time. China has already built what military analysts call the world's largest inventory of anti-ship ballistic missiles. The DF-21D, nicknamed the Carrier Killer, has a claimed range of 900 miles and is specifically designed to hit moving aircraft carriers at sea. Russia has invested heavily in hypersonic anti-ship missiles like the Zircon, capable of traveling at Mach 9. Iran itself is developing longer-range precision ballistic missiles with claimed circular error probabilities, the accuracy radius of just 30 meters. They are all watching the Red Sea. They are all updating their targeting data. They are all learning. The United States Navy has the most powerful fleet in human history. No single adversary can challenge it in a direct confrontation. The Houthis aren't trying to challenge it directly. They are doing something more dangerous. They are demonstrating to every adversary, every insurgent, every sanctioned regime on Earth that you don't have to sink a carrier to change the calculus of American power. You just have to make it expensive to be there. You just have to make it dangerous enough that the pressure accumulates. You just have to prove that a $10,000 drone can consume a $2.1 million missile, that a $20,000 drone can force a $67 million jet off a flight deck, that the world's greatest navy can be bled, slowly, steadily, relentlessly, by an enemy it cannot afford to ignore and cannot simply destroy. The USS Harry S. Truman is still afloat. Its strike group is still operational. American power in the Red Sea has not collapsed, but the ledger tells a story that no press conference can fully obscure. 3 Super Hornets lost in a single deployment, a carrier commander fired, a collision, hundreds of millions in munitions expended, a trade route worth $1 trillion per year disrupted for over a year, and the Houthis, after hundreds of American airstrikes, after thousands of tons of bombs dropped on their territory, are still shooting. America's $13 billion carrier versus Iran's $10,000 drones. Who wins the first strike? Neither, because this isn't about a single strike. This is about endurance, attrition, economic warfare. And in that war, the math is not comfortably on America's side. The lesson of the Red Sea is not that America is weak. America is not weak. The lesson is that strength is only as good as your ability to sustain it. And the gap between the cost of attack and the cost of defense, between a $10,000 drone and a $2.1 million interceptor, is a gap that every adversary on Earth is now studying, measuring, and planning around. Freedom of navigation is not free. Projecting power is not without price. And the greatest navy in history is learning in the waters of the Red Sea what it costs to be the policeman of the world when the criminals can afford to keep paying the fine. If you're part of this community because you want the real analysis, the numbers, the tactics, the uncomfortable truths, then don't miss what comes next. Subscribe to NavyForceUSA and hit that bell so you never miss a breakdown like this one. Was the Truman's Red Sea deployment a victory, a warning, or something far more costly? Leave your answer in the comments. And one final question. If you were commanding the U.S. Fifth Fleet right now, what one change would you make immediately? Tell us below. This kind of deep tactical breakdown takes hours to research and build. If you found value in this analysis, subscribe to help us keep making it. The world is changing fast. Someone has to keep watching.